Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Nelson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiac. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Many of us will agree that turning our dreams into reality requires passion, commitment, and sacrifice. It is hard work, but these key ingredients will lead us to success. Today, my co-host, CEO of Peerlight, Gus Arianto, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Kari Baynes, founder, director, and chief vision officer at Different Strokes Swimming. Kari has had an impressive career in the media industry, and it wasn't until the age of 54 that Kari decided to leave a successful career and start her own business, Different Strokes Swimming. Kari is here today to share with us her secrets on what it takes to not only follow your passion and dreams, but then also turn your passion into reality. Through running her own successful business, Kari believes that our ability to glide during stormy moments will make us swim faster towards our success. Welcome to the show, Kari.
Oh, thank you, Natalie. What a pleasure to be here.
Hello, Kari. Nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you, Gus. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We're privileged. Thank you for donating your time.
My pleasure.
And look, Kari, all the guests that we have on Leader Talk, we always start our show with asking them two fun questions. So we have yours prepared. So the first one that I'd like to ask is, who is your favorite superhero and why?
Oh, okay. Well, that's Pippi Longstocking. She's a character from the Astrid Lindgren books, and I read all her books when I was a child. And the reason why is I guess she resonates with me because I'm half Danish and it's a Swedish story. She's a Swedish author, but she's an amazing girl who doesn't suffer fools, particularly adult fools. She's got super strengths and can lift a horse. She lives by herself and she's quite wild and sassy. And, you know, she's everything that a young girl would want to be. She wears her hair out with pigtails out here. And she lives a fantastic life, and she's very kind. She's very kind to her next door neighbors and children next door and the animals. And she's got super strength, and she's got fantastic stories. She's a great storyteller.
I love that. She's not often thought of as a superhero, but really she is, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. I totally adore her. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's the first one we've had on Leader Talk, so
yes, the first superheroes.
And what about, Kari, if you were stuck on a deserted island for 3 months, who would you take with you and why? One person.
Well, I'd have to say my partner, George. And we've virtually done it in lockdown, right? You know, it kind of feels like a desert island when you're in lockdown. But besides the fact that he's my partner, he teaches construction and engineering, so I figured that'd come in very handy on a desert island. Build us a shelter.
Strategic.
And we're both swimmers, so we could do a lot of swimming around the island. And he's a pretty mean gardener as well. So I think we'd be okay. Yeah.
You're set. What a great answer. Kari, before we go on to the questions, we were hoping you can tell everyone just a bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I, as you touched on, run a swim school called Different Strokes Swimming. We specialise in adult learn to swim programs all the way through to open water. We've got the whole journey for adults. It started with an idea and came at the back end of a long corporate career in media sales primarily. And it was an idea that blossomed out of a passion, and it's been built up. It's been going now for 7 years almost, which is kind of extraordinary when I think about it. It's born out of love and passion, and we've done a lot to help a lot of people. We've had over 3,000 odd people go through our program, and they're all adults, largely new Australians or migrants who are learning to swim for water safety or as part of their assimilation into Australian society. But our squad program has a very loyal following as well, and it's a fun business to be in.
And you know what I find really interesting? I did some background research ahead of the show, and it says here at one of your bios, it says that you are someone who actually learned to swim freestyle at the age of 48. And
That's
following that, in 2019, you've competed in a 10K Lake Argyle swim, which was in a relay swim. You've also done a 14K a solo swim, a 10K solo swim. It's just incredible. Where did that passion come from?
It's a really interesting question, Natalie. It doesn't, I think people sometimes think a passion just ignites straight away. It's not. It's a slow burn. And it is a passion that kind of came from a guy that I worked with who should really, I acknowledge, take a lot of credit, because John was a magnificent teacher, and he taught me out of the kindness of his heart every week, rain, hail or shine, to swim freestyle. I looked like a dog in a washing machine when I started, and he managed to make something of that for me. And between the two of us, we got me to 20 laps over 18 months continuously. And then I joined a masters club, and I'm quite competitive, and so I started to compete. I'd never had a sports background before, I might add. My history in terms of recreational activities was the arts and reading. It wasn't sports at all. So this was a whole new territory to me. And, having coaches and all of this was just like a completely different world. But I joined a masters club and made quite a lot of friends through the club. And one of them has become my, swim buddy, and she encouraged me into open water swimming, and she nudged me along. And for her, I'm forever grateful, because she has encouraged me to do all these long swims and things that I'm quite fearful of sharks and surf, and she's just helped me overcome a lot of that and got me there. So yes. But those swims take time and training, and I guess it's a bit of a metaphor for life. I've done swims without training and felt the pain, and I've done swims where I've trained properly and felt magnificent at the end. So I guess, as with business or with life, if you don't put the strategy and the work in and the thoughtfulness into it and the planning, it can all go to custard, as I say to my students. My first 10K solo swim in Lake Windermere, Northern England, I didn't train. I went by the seat of my pants and thought I could pull it out of the bag. I remember being wide at the marshalling area and and I stupidly told them I was from Australia, so they interviewed me as well, which was even worse, because I just wanted to die 1,000 deaths and had really hoped the swim would be cancelled because I hadn't trained properly and the weather had been so bad. But they ran it, and then they interviewed me before I went in, which made me feel even worse, because there's a lot of high hopes for Australian swimmers all around the world, which of course I was never going to live up to. And it was a very stressful swim and quite problematic for me, and took a lot of strong thinking to overcome it. I was about to bail out of it, and I kept going. But I came out of that swim and I couldn't lift my arm for 3 days. And it just showed that you can actually do physical damage to yourself if you don't train properly. And as it gets, it's a bit like business, really. If you don't think it through and have strategy, you can also have damage.
Such an inspirational story. Thank you. It gives us hope. Jared, my husband, he wants the idea to run a marathon. We've got a cutoff of 40. And I went, I can't. But then I see this and I'm like, it's incredible. You couldn't even swim. I can run. So yeah. I have that. It's just such a beautiful story. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Yes, it really has set me up for life.
And look, with your experience, we really want to touch on leadership, because you've gone from, News Corp to running your own business. So going from a very senior executive role in a very large company to obviously running your business, has your overall view of leadership changed at all?
No, I don't think there's any difference in leadership. And I don't think leadership's necessarily restricted to just the person that heads the organization. I think leadership can be at any level, and anyone can be a leader. And, I hope that my team in their way and are leaders as well. When they're running their class, they're leading that class. They're the leader. When I'm, running my business, I'm the leader of certain aspects. But, leadership is something that, whether you're working in a large corporate or a small business, the same principles apply, in my view. And I think, for me, the key qualities in leadership are about authenticity, about clarity of message, about being able to walk the talk. I've never asked anyone to do anything I wouldn't do myself. So, and not seeing myself as above anybody else. We're all in a team together. Everyone has a role to play. It's always a team effort.
Kari, can I ask a question? When you mentioned that, the three that you just mentioned, authenticity, do what you say, and also what's the second one? Authenticity,
clarity,
and clarity. Is that something we can learn, or is that something that people born with it?
No, of course. No. I think you can definitely learn it. And I think, for me, it's probably become, it was always true in a bigger business, because you have a vision of what your area or your responsibilities are, the mission for your particular department. In a small business, it becomes it's crystallized even more, because you are what your business is. Your business is you. They're integrated, because as a figurehead in the business, you're the face of the business. You are the business. And particularly at the early stages. I mean, obviously, when you become a much larger organisation, it doesn't always follow. But still, even so, Rupert Murdoch is news. Tim Cook is Apple. Like those people are still the face of the business, but they have a lot of other people too that it resonates with. But for me, I think it's the same wherever, whichever business size you're in. You need to be cognizant of those key elements, in my opinion, to be a successful leader.
It's fantastic. And Kari, I wanted to touch on your title. Like, you've got founder, director, and the one that really stood out for me was Chief Vision Officer.
Yeah.
Can you briefly explain the meaning behind this?
Because I don't see this often. I don't see this often in corporation, in whatever it is. Someone actually put, I'm a Chief Vision Officer.
Yes, look,
amazing.
I think it was a throwaway line from Simon Sinek when I went to one of his workshops. It really, when I heard it, I just thought, I want that for my business. Because again, when I was saying what I was saying earlier about you need to be on message, you need to have a vision. And if you don't have a vision for your business, you're not going to go anywhere. And one of my mentors at News Corp once said to me, a business it's never stagnant. It either goes backwards or it goes forwards.
Yes.
So for me, it's never going to go forward if you don't have a vision. So I would like everyone that works with me and my team share in my vision for the business. So we're all vision officers. I just might be the chief one. They all share the vision. We're all passionate about getting adults learning to swim, adults healthy, adults having a much better relationship with the water, adults feeling safe in the water. We do actually save lives. We stop people drowning. And we are passionate about that. The team and I are totally passionate about helping adults find their way with the water and all things aquatic, and they share the vision with me.
Wow, that's
interesting. And then, Kari, is there any tips or tricks you have for actually keeping this passion alive, to actually align everyone with the vision? Because it's one thing having a vision, but then to see people act it out, and clearly everyone that works there in your eyes is a vision officer, which is, it's a really nice way to see a vision come to life.
And also, I want to add into that, if you're passionate about your own business, that's normal. But because that's your own business, but to have your team, to have your staff, to have people that is inside your business to be as passionate as you are, require a strategy, maybe. I call it strategy. Do you mind to share that? How do you...
Yeah, okay. I think, well, first of all, to answer Natalie's question, how do I keep my own passion alive? And look, it's not easy, right? You can't be on and passionate the whole time. It's like in your marriage, right? Like you're passionate, but there's times when you're really, that passionate's getting a bit thin, and I think it's the same. It is the same with a small business or any business. That passion has its moments. So for me, what I do is, and I did this actually also when I worked at News. So for me in the swimming business, I go swimming. So for me to reignite my passion, I need to go and do a nice long swim or get back into swimming in a relaxed way to get, as I call it, get my mojo back. Just feel the water, swim where I like to swim, no pressure, just get back into the rhythm of it. Maybe hang around with some of my swimming community, get the vibe again. And then the other thing I do is go and spend time teaching, because it's my clients that actually feed me and keep me going. Their excitement, their absolute disbelief that they could actually realize their swimming goals. Those are the things that help remind me why I do and my team does what we do. That's what helps to keep my passion alive. And interestingly enough, when I worked at News Corp, I used to sometimes go and sit in the call center downstairs with the guys and just hear how they were going making calls, and they'd be a bit shocked to see me come down 2 or 3 levels and pull up a chair next to them. And then I used to say to them, give me some calls. I want to make some calls. I love cold calling. Give me a sheet. I'm just going to sit here and make some calls with you. Let's do it together. Let's have a little race. Let's see how it is. Let's have a little comp, And I think just being with the team, sitting with the team, doing the calls, getting back with your people, getting back with your customers. That's what helps keeps my passion alive anyway.
And this is an important point, in my opinion. Whether you are running your own business, whether you are in the corporation, many will agree with me that when the career goes up, we forgot why we are there in the first place.
That's right.
In my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, Gus.
Yeah. And I love your example of at one point you managing 100 sales team for News. And you were one of them at the start of your journey. Doing the cold calls you mentioned to me.
Yeah.
Well, you will lose your passion of managing sales team if you disconnect to what a sales team do every day, because you will be frustrated listening to sales team saying,
Exactly. And I think one of the things that I did start up at News Corp was a group called Rising Stars. So these were the people that weren't the successful sales guys. These were the guys whose numbers were lagging. These were the guys who were kind of at the bottom end of the sales team in terms of performance. And so we did it. I started on a Friday morning. I say, come in early and we're going to have breakfast together and we're going to do Rising Stars, because I said, you're going to be Rising Stars. And we used to just do role plays and go through sales skills. Everyone would bring their coffee in. And then it got a lot of momentum. And some of the high performers wanted to come in and join. I was like, no, it's Rising Stars. And so we ended up getting this team. But they loved it. They used to come in early on Friday mornings and we'd go through Rising Stars. And again, they might have had, I was the sales director, they'd have their own sales managers and other people that reported into me, but I wanted to take that team on and I wanted to sit with them and do Rising Stars, And again, it's a way of reconnecting and for them to see that I'm, like anybody, I can come and sit down and do role plays with you and help you improve your sales skills.
Yeah, I think it's a great, I can relate to that because you're so, running a business, you're often so busy doing all the meetings, the runarounds, meeting prospective clients, the lead generation and all that kind of stuff. But then when you actually do what you love, when the whole team, for us, it's writing. So when I actually get to write something, there's usually a message to the team or I contact someone going, I actually got to write today. It's exciting. And it sounds like you're the same when it comes to swimming. It reignites that passion. It's the reason you do everything. And you just need that little bit to remind you how fun it is. And then, you're back on track again.
Well, I think the thing is, Natalie, if you're not excited about the business, how can you expect anyone else to be excited about the business?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You've said it. It's so true.
You can't. You can't expect your team or your clients to be excited if you're not excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Clearly, Kari, you're really a great leader. And what I'd love to know is how do you continue to grow and develop? You've had such a wonderful career. Yeah, do you have any tips and tricks that you can share with everyone? Because we'd love to continue learning just like you have.
Look, I try different things. So when we had lockdown and I couldn't swim, which I might add nearly killed me, I took up cycling and running. So and I'm not a runner. I couldn't run 500 meters before I did the couch to 5K. I didn't get to the 5K, so I have to put my hand up and confess I haven't finished it. I've still got work to do, but I took up running. I've never run. And I took up cycling. I've owned a beautiful bicycle in my garage that I've ridden 4 times in 7 years. So I took up cycling and in the end was sort of doing 22K cycles around the bay in Sydney. So, and that was a whole new world for me. And so then I sort of joined this community and I started hanging out with the cyclists at the cafe with my friends that were, sort of chaperoning me as I was learning to cycle. And I was like looking at how this community kind of interacts, which is a whole different world to me, a different tribe. And I do different things. At the moment, I'm doing acting. I'm doing an acting course. I'm writing a book. I'm doing different. So I think if you explore different areas of life, you run the risk often in small business because you are it is you, it's your baby. You become very two-dimensional. It's the business and it's the family. And that happens in corporate life. I remember my family saying, friends saying, Kari, I know you work for News Corp, but, we're here too. So it's very easy to become two-dimensional. And I think if you become two-dimensional as a leader, your thinking becomes very narrow and you need to broaden your thinking. So I read widely. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I follow specific individuals. I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. My business mentor who I met her when she was starting out, but I follow her closely through social media and so forth. It's Ronnie Khan from Oz Harvest, who I think is an amazing leader. So I get lots of input. I do workshops. I hire consultants to give me input. I'm open. I think you've got to be open. I'm open to ideas. I learn from my team. So I often will go and shadow my team and learn how they're doing things and go, wow, that's a different way of teaching kicking. That's a different way of stroke correction. Why are you doing that? Oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm upgrading my own qualifications. I'm going into I'm doing the bronze coaching license or the developmental coaching license now for swim coaching. So I'm always on a path of learning. And I think once you stop learning, your days as a leader, as a good leader, are numbered, because if you don't, the world's changing quickly. I mean, that's been going on since time immemorial. But I think if you don't open yourself, you're not receptive to new ideas and to new learnings, new ways of thinking about things, new ways of communicating, new ways that communities interact, then you're going to be very limited. And of course I do. And I just finish one thing, Gus. And the other thing is, I think that I do all the things that are stock standard. I network with my peers in the industry. I look at what they're doing. I look at related industries and see what they're doing. What's happening in cycling, what's happening in running, what's happening in triathlons, what's happening here, how are those organizations setting up, what sort of events are they putting up. So I look at all of that. But to me, that's the basics. Like every leader should be doing that regardless. But then you'd like to do additional activities.
So you have a business teaching people how to swim. You swim yourself. You do running. You do reading. You do acting class. You have private coaching. Do you watch Netflix?
No, I'm also I'm on a committee, a couple of committees. So I've got a few things going on.
I think what you said that really resonate to me. When you do and explore different things as a leader, not only you learn something, you actually expanding your leadership. I want to share something that is really, really true. So when we start our leader talk, and then I also have my website, One Bowl of Rice. I never knew how difficult to even open a website, to have my own website. Because in the corporation, I just asked my marketing team what happened with our website. And then I got 10 people working on it, right? And I always said, how come it take days just to do that? And then it took me months just to register a name. I said to Natalie, one thing I learned, which is resonate to what you say, the way I look at my marketing team today is different because I understand the time taken to do such a simple thing.
Tell me about it, Gus. Setting up your own business. When I first set this business up, my partner said to me, what are you going to do, Kari? So I hired a lane and an instructor, and he said, so what are you going to do? I said, well, of course I'm going to manage it. He's like, well, but you've got nothing to manage. But I said, but I'm a manager. That's what I do. I've got this great idea. Now I'm going to manage it. And he's like, but there's nothing. What is there? You need more than that. And I realized he was right. And I went and got my qualifications and became a swim instructor as well. And then I started teaching. But then I realized, like Gus was saying, I wanted to ring IT when my computer broke. There was no IT. I wanted to ring 2777, the internal discussion. When I had to hire people, I had to, learn all about HR and, I ended up spending a lot of money on people getting experts in those fields to help me because I was completely at a loss. How do you set up an employment agreement? How do you work out which is the right insurance I should have for my business? Because we're in the aquatic space. It's not just simple, there's specialized insurance for people like us. How do I design a website? I put that out and got some people in the United States to make my website, and then when I got a letter after it was set up a few months later, I got an email at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon from the Attorney General's Department telling me to shut it down because it was emanating viruses all through the country. I didn't know what to do. I had to get hold of, super sleuth, people in the United States to help me fix my website to stop, I might add the Attorney General's Department was very impressed with how quickly I resolved the issue. But, all of these were huge learnings for me. I've had to learn all these new skills, bookkeeping, zero accounting, financial management. My accountant wrapped me over the knuckles about my expenditure in the early days on marketing. She kept saying to me, you don't have a News Corp marketing budget. Because coming from a big corporate, I was so used to all the zeros, they meant nothing to me. I don't mean that in a glib way. I was just, when you work for news, everything's got 3 zeros behind it, So for me, it was just kind of a huge reality check to sort of suddenly kind of come back down to earth and go, you're running a small business and you need to start really thinking very carefully about your expenditure, about making sure that you've got your governance right, making sure that you have your contracts in place, you've got the right insurances, you get your BAS statement done properly. All of those things is a huge learning.
Yes,
When
so
I came as a sales leader, not a financial controller or an HR expert. They weren't my sort of designated areas.
So to our audience, if you're listening to this, please understand that if you run a small business, you have to be kind to yourself, because according to Kari, come from a major company, what you're doing is much more complex than what you think, because everything you are responsible. So be kind to yourself, because it is complex. It is complex.
It is absolutely complex. And I have had more sleepless nights running this business than I ever had having to give a 6-hour presentation to the CEO of News Corp, and in those days I thought that was going to be tough. But this is, small business is tough. I had no idea before I got into it. And then, I got into a business in an industry that I had no experience in. I'd be lining up along the pool deck next to guys that, were ex-champion swimmers, looking at me going, who's she? She learned to swim, 5 years ago, like, who's she coming here teaching adults how to swim? But now those guys and I work well together, and through, a number of factors within the industry, we've sort of set up what I jokingly call the Ministry of Swimming, where I'm basically the president now. So those guys come to me for sort of support and advice, and we work in a very collegiate way in terms of how we can manage our relationships in the industry. And I've realized that, my corporate skills have come in handy even in the aquatic space, because most people that come into this area come from the ground up as swimmers, and I've come the other way. So, yeah.
Kari, I have no doubt that lots of small and medium business owners that are listening can relate, because I sure can. When you talk about the employment contracts, zero, BAS, the bookkeeping, it's like, you're always learning. There's some question that you're always researching, or it's just it's a really different side. I mean, I've come from corporate, very different again, and running a business. I hear you, and I know a lot of people out there. Maybe they've started their business, just they've got a business and they've never come from corporate, and sometimes they are too hard on themselves. And I think, Gus, what you said is be kind to yourself. It is very true.
Yeah.
So thank you for the honesty. I have no doubt that everyone out there is listening going, I can relate to that. But Kari, I want to change the direction of the discussion on sales, because, sales, you've had a huge sales background. We'd love to know, what do you think are the top 3 attributes of a successful sales team? Because small, medium business owners, large, whoever you are, we all have to sell, right? And you've got heaps of experience. What are some tips and tricks you can share with us?
Okay. First of all, sales team, I think the most important aspect is the team. So if you've been watching Ted Lasso, and I guess I do watch a bit of Netflix. If you've been watching Ted Lasso, I think he's on Apple TV. You'll learn all about team. And I think team is very important. So when I was going through my time as a sales leader, there were various schools of thought, particularly around incentive structures, about whether it should be individualized or team-based. And I've always lent towards a team-based incentive structure. I think everyone needs to work together and help each other, and have a less overtly competitive environment. Otherwise, I've seen sales floors where salespeople are fighting over leads and accounts, and because they're bigger revenue generators, and I'm not a fan of that. So I like a team to work together and support each other and work to a single goal, a monthly target or a quarterly target, however your organization is structured. I think the other thing for a sales team is that you need to realize that everything in life, including in swimming, is measured. So you need to get your baseline, work out where your numbers are now, and then sales is largely a numbers game. it is about, if you see X number of people, ultimately you're going to convert one of them into a warm lead, and then they're going to convert into a sale. So it is numbers, however many, if you're doing if you take a step back and you're doing your SEO work, which is another thing I've had to learn. If you do your SEO work, you learn that, how many clips and page impressions come through, then they become a contact, and then the contact, it's a funnel. And then it's about the conversion rates, and that's where the sales team come in. So it is about numbers. And if I use an analogy in swimming, when we talk about numbers, it's about the number of strokes, it's about the glide, which I'll tell you a bit more about the glide afterwards. But I think, so numbers, and I guess the other part of it is hard work. I think people often see, particularly if they work in other departments, that sales looks like a fun business. And look, it is fun in many ways, but it's also a lot of hard work. And salespeople need to realise that it takes about 12 months. You've got to go through a full year's cycle to realise the peaks and troughs, because every industry has it. The peaks and troughs, so that then when you come through and you do the second year, you're prepared and you know how to handle that. You basically spend the first year setting yourself up, putting in a lot of hard yards, and then the second year you can then extend from that, and it kind of gives you a springboard. And I mean, that's what I found in my own business. It's what I've always found in sales in corporate Australia, is that's kind of important to realize that.
How do you drive hard work, Kari, for sales team? So we are the owner of smaller business. We don't have 200 people. We have two sales team, one or two sales team, helping us to sell our plumbing equipment. How do you? And once again, when you have 100 sales team or two, much harder for the two, right? Because not only they can hold to the brands of the business. How do you instill the culture of hard work when it's really, really hard?
I think the best way to instill the culture of hard work for me is to look at how you can ease the way of it. So how are the sales skills? What areas, where are people struggling? Where is it becoming the hardest, so that we can help them get through it? So how do you upskill your sales team? Do you need to, if you're a small enterprise, do you need to bring someone in from the outside, just not a lot of expense, but to bring someone in to come and talk to them, to inspire them, someone that can help them see that everyone has done the hard yards at some point, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And there is always light at the end of the tunnel. I think you also need to do a lot of team building work, because if we're all in it together and it's all tough, then we've all got to, you've got to balance it with a bit of fun. So you need to do some team building activities, which is hard at the moment when people are working remotely. The old proverbial Friday night Zoom drinks, etc., only goes so far. But I think now that we can get together face to face, it's good. You can bring in, and I'm also not a hugely keen on everything being centered around alcohol in these kind of environments. Sales traditionally has always been centered around drinks after work, lunches, sales conferences with lots of alcohol flowing. I'm not sure it's conducive to a very productive team building exercise. I think there's lots of other activities you could be doing with your people, whether it's a joint physical activity, you can, there's all sorts of, you could go and learn to rock climb together, or you could go and learn to swim together, or you could learn, something physical and healthy that helps people come together and work together. So I think acknowledging that it's tough, acknowledging that we're all in it together, but that we're all going to get through it, rolling up your sleeves and being there with your team. So don't be the absent leader. They're all working long hours, but you've cleared off to the meeting. Be there with them and be supportive. And I think and celebrate success. So when you've had a success, when you've had a win, celebrate it. Make sure it's acknowledged. Make sure that you're celebrating it with people. And of course, always look to see how you can improve performance by upskilling.
Yeah. Kari, what I learned as well, at the start when you talk about leadership, you said one of the attribute is do what you say or have the ability to actually do. And when I see a lot of people, not a lot, but I witness in my network, there's a lot of people fail when they don't do this. So they have a salespeople. Say you are a plumbing business and you have two salespeople, and you keep questioning the salespeople. Why don't you do the cold calls? Wow, how many calls you do today? Why don't you visit the clients? Yet he or she unable to do that. So when I come back to what you say about you have no problem in picking up the phone yourself and making the cold calls. Now, if you have a sales team that is really, really scared doing the cold calls, but the owner actually able to sit and show, the impact will be different than just being on the ears and saying, why don't you do that calls? I pay you to do that calls. Why don't you do that calls? Because that's where leaders fail, in my opinion. The minute you actually able to sit and empathize to that problem and show it's okay, I swim with you to the other side. That way the impact happen. And that's come back to the leadership statement that you mentioned.
Absolutely. And I think to that point, Gus, you need to really think about how you're feeling about sales. Because if you're coming down on your sales team, and maybe, as you said, you're not confident as a salesperson yourself, then what are you going to do about it? I might be a brilliant software engineer and I've come up with a fantastic app, but if I can't sell it, it's not going to go anywhere. So, and I'm not confident in selling. And I think, well, if I hire Natalie and Gus and they're going to make it all happen for me, so I'm just going to, there you go, there's the phone, there are the leads, off you go. That's not how it's going to work. So you have to learn to do these things yourself. I mean, I didn't know how to market, and I went and joined an organization that taught me how to do marketing. So now I can post on Facebook, I can do social media, because I had to go and learn it myself. Now I now subsequently have hired people to do that for me in my business, but I know how to do it. So if she gets stuck, I can help her because I've gone and learned how to do that.
Yeah.
Now,
even Natalie,
I don't even want to do it myself, right? Like it will never be my passion, but I know how to do it and I can do it. Yeah.
Even to the extent, Natalie, Kari told me I need to do more Instagram live using my phone. And he actually showed me how to do Instagram live. Right?
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Kari, I'm just thinking for everyone listening out there, and they own a business, but they don't like selling. What can they do? So if they're they've got a business, they don't like selling, but they need to sell to have a successful business. Is there any advice you can give them?
Yep, you need to find someone in your network who does like selling, and then network with them and go and have coffee with them once a week. So I have, ironically, someone that I met at a conference in the United States, we were one of 12 Australians in this conference that had like 3,000 people in it for the health and wellness industry. Mm-hmm. And ironically, she lives like 5 minutes walk from my house. And we met, and she's a financial management consulting person, but she has picked my brains quite often about selling. And so we go and have coffee once a week initially when we first came back from the States from the conference, and we share ideas. And I would pick her brains about financial management and, she had a much broader and had been in business much longer than I had in terms of financial and management skills. And so we'd share them. So my advice to small business owners, if sales is not your strength, then reach out. You can reach out to me. I'd be happy to have coffee with anybody. And
hang on, let me give a clarity in here. The question is, what should we do if we don't like selling? And your answer is find a network to have coffee. Because Kari, actually, am I right to say that basically what you said, there is no other way. You need to learn how to sell by networking. It's not like networking to find someone to do it for you. Right?
No, because you can't afford it. Who can afford that? Like, you can't afford that. So you've got to, you need to learn it yourself. I've had to learn things in this business myself that I don't like doing. You know, I don't like timetabling. Hands up.
Are you saying that sales is very important in any business?
Of course it is. It's important in life. Life is all about selling. You know, how are you going to get the next job if you can't sell yourself? How are you going to get a loan if you can't sell yourself? How are you going to manage in life and make friends if you can't sell yourself? Sales is integral to life. It's so people don't often see it that way. They see this is me and then they're selling. You know, it's all part of life. And I think it's because when I started selling in the 80s, that's just telling you exactly how old I am. When I started selling in the 80s, sales was a dirty word. No one wanted to do it. Everyone thought it was horrible. I started telephone sales, commission only, in London. I was shown a desk, a phone, and a script, and a yellow pages. Off you go, sell. And the only way you could pay the rent was if you sold. And so I learned the hard way. But now I can smell a sale at 100 paces, you know, because I've got that street gutter, 1980s, down and dirty, hard selling. Do it now, Mr. Jones, or else. Send me that fax. Not even the fax. Send me that wire. That's how long ago it was, with your confirmation of the sales. And I think in many ways, those skills just stick with you for life. So people see sales as that horrible, hard-nosed salesperson. But today it's very different, and it's all about building relationships. It's about nurturing. It's about looking at ways that you can exchange ideas. It's about, you know, there's a lot of groups at the moment that, you know, around Sydney, and I'm sure all over the world, where you can find business networking groups where people are swapping almost services, you know. I think, and then you can meet customers, you know, that way. Depending on what line you're in, of course, if you're B2B or you're B2C, either way, you're going to have to sell. It's critical to any business that you sell, that you're able to sell.
See, Natalie, it's time for you to engage more with Kari.
Gus knows. You know what? When you mentioned sales is known as a dirty word, it really is still perceived as that even now. I don't think it has completely been wiped off. Like when you think of sales, you kind of go, oh, you know, I don't want to be that pushy, annoying, but you need it. And
sorry, I'm cutting you off, Natalie.
No, that's pretty much what it is. It's still perceived. And Gus knows, you know, when I'm saying, Gus, I'm going on for, you know, I've got a lead, got to sell. But it is still, it can be tough. On top of everything else that you're doing is still managing that as well. So that kind of dirty word that you mentioned, I still perceive it as like that now, not in the 1980s when you mentioned. I think it's still perceived as that a lot now. And I have no doubt people are listening now and going, I feel like that as well.
Look, I think there are a lot of people that feel like that. I guess take the fear away. The worst that anyone can tell you is they can hang up on you. That's the worst. That's the worst that can happen. People that say to you, oh, yes, call me back next week, call me next week, call me next week, generally from my experience are people that don't want to tell you that you have an ugly baby. You know, no one wants to say you've got an ugly baby, right? But basically they don't want your service, but they don't want to tell you that for whatever reason. And it's probably nothing personal. Maybe they just, you know, they don't like the color of your logo. They don't want it, but they're not going to tell you that they don't like it because they don't want to hurt you. So they're just going to. So you've got to realize, take the emotion out of it, and realize that people that reject your business for whatever reason, it's nothing to do with you. It's about them for whatever reason. Obviously, if you've got a lot of people rejecting your business, and you've got to have a hard look and say, what's going on here? Sales is all about timing. So, pestering people that you mentioned there, Natalie, it's about timing. And I often say to my team here that are on the phone to clients, don't ring them too much. Just leave it. Give them a bit of time, then call them back. And that's, it's like when if you're cooking, I don't know, do you cook? If you're cooking and you're making a risotto, or you're making a sauce, or you're blending something, you can curdle something, you can ruin something if you go too hard. It's a timing thing. Sales is all about timing. It's about being sensitive to people, realizing that people are busy. And I think people by and large are nice. People really are happy to chat with you. They really want to know more about your business. If they're asking lots of questions, it's a buying sign. They want to know more. Tell them more. If you've got things that are a bit not great about your business, there's a saying about brag about known objections. Just brag about it. Just say, look, we're maybe not so we're not as fast as other organizations, but our quality's there. Or, there's some other ways that you can tease out. Everything has a positive. You just got to find it. But I think if you find someone in your network that is a good salesperson and saddle up next to them, they'll be able to help you out.
And what's crazy about selling is a lot of people actually equally love to be like the feeling to be approached and someone actually want to sell something. While some might say it's annoying, how often you walk around JB Hi-Fi, or I like JB Hi-Fi, or like any shop, and you actually want someone to actually say, buy this, but no one come to you because for whatever reason, you come out empty-handed, frustrated a little bit, when you actually want to be sold, like you want to buy something.
Right? And ironically, from my experience, salespeople are the best people to sell to, because they love to be sold to. And I'm often impressed when someone sells me. I'm like, you're really good. I've got to take it. Even I'm not even sure I want it, but I'm just so impressed with how you sold it to me. I want it, So I think it's an art, and it can be learned. So, I wasn't born as a salesperson. It's something that I learned. If you're excited about your product and the service that you offer, if you're passionate about what you do, you're halfway there. You don't need much more to sell. There's a few obvious basic sales skills that you can pick up about when to close, how to overcome objections, and you can learn those on YouTube, but no one has the passion or the excitement of your business but you. So you will always sell it better than anybody else. So it's your baby.
Yeah. And Kari, I just want to ask, sales strategy. Does every small business, in your opinion, or medium, large, does everyone require a clear sales strategy?
I think strategy might be a strong word for some small business. I mean, small business can vary in size within that small business, but micro to small.
Yeah.
I think you need a sales process, and I don't know that strategy feels big to me, but I think you need a sales process. You need to understand the contact points with the customer. So when the customer enters your business, are they coming via a phone inquiry? Are they coming via an email? Are they coming via a contact form on your website? How are they coming to you? Are they coming through your social media platform? Then what's your process? Who's managing that? And then what's your process? So when a client comes to us, they usually come on a landing page or a contact form from our website. We then enter them into our CRM system, which then sends out a welcome letter automatically, a welcome email to them. Then someone on my team sends out another piece of detailed information. That's then followed up with a sales call from me or someone else on the team. And then we book them into their introductory class. And then we follow that up and see how that was. And then they purchase a package and a program. That is the sales process.
Yes.
We have, if we've rung them twice and they haven't responded, we let them go. And they go in and they'll get washed through our sales CRM system that we use. And we'll probably be in touch with them via an automated email service 6 months later. But that's the process. So we have a process. Now, if I have a small business that I'm just starting out, I still need a process. You still need to know how many times are you going to touch the customer, and I mean that in terms of contact, touch the customer on their journey in your business. You need to map that out.
I totally agree with Kari. When we use the word strategy, the sophistication of what we're trying to do can actually kill the intent. I want to share something. So my wife, about 15 years ago, owned a small business, which is supplying school uniforms to a school. She only did that for 5 years because she, lucky enough to supply one of a very large school with 3,000 children. And I remember when she came to me, she forget about selling. She's introvert as a character, so she can't even talk publicly. And she said to me, "What should I do? I'm competing with the largest uniform manufacturer in Melbourne." You know what I said? I said to her back then, I said, "Leah, what you need to do is when to go to that tender process, which is a Catholic school, and I want you to bring Dylan with you." And she said, "What do you mean I bring Dylan with me? Dylan is my eldest son. Back then is still only like 2 years old or something." And I said, "Bring Dylan to the tender process, and you say to the head of priest, which is managing the school, I'm a mom. I don't have anything that every big company got. I got that son to look after. Through your business, I can do this." They give the Kari, they give the business. She go home and said, "I got the contract."
Yeah.
And that I learned all this sophistication about we need to have a PowerPoint. We need to, okay, if you have the time, if you have the resource, do it. But it come back to what you say, just sell. Just sell with passion.
Sell with passion. And selling is storytelling. People love a story and they love a backstory. So, so for me, if I tell people my swimming journey story, that is, often something that helps me sell, because people hear the story and they go, "Wow, you've been where I've been." Okay, yeah, okay, you get it. You understand my fears. You understand how I feel. They want empathy. I think, and this is a quality that I feel not just in sales leadership, which is for small business owners, but in leadership in general. I feel that if you're not passionate and you don't have a vision and you're not kind, I think kindness is important, and people can feel kindness.
Yeah.
When you're selling to people, they can feel you're kind. If people, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, if you're coming to do work with people, people that come to me often have water phobias. Many, probably a third of the people we deal with have had near drowning experiences. People have had poor experiences in other classes or whatever. People have body image issues. There's a whole bunch of stuff. If you're not kind and gentle with that, and you're not empathetic and meet that with compassion, they're not going to come to your business. Now if I was selling something else, I'm trying to think of, if I was selling books, if I don't come with some empathy, when I go to my local bookstore, I prefer to support my local bookstore than a bigger chain, because they really want to know what I'm reading. They want to know why I'm reading it. They want to know about my book club. They want to know how often am I doing it, and what are the next books? Shall they get them in for me? Like, people they're interested in me. They're concerned about me. And I think if you put the customer front and center of everything you do, and you make them feel like they are very important, which they are, it'll pay you back in spades.
Kari, I feel like we can talk to you for another hour, maybe even another 2, but I'm looking at the time and we are definitely near the end of time. But I want to touch on one item that you mentioned before, glide, and you said you were going to come back to it.
Yes.
Gus, I think you know a little bit about this. Can you share with everyone what you mean by glide?
Okay. So when I was learning to swim, one of the things that I was taught by my original lovely teacher, John, was about the glide, and that you need to hold the water. So when you're swimming, you hold your arm out and there's a glide. There's a moment when you're swimming when nothing's happening, when there might be a marginal kick, but nothing's happening. There is inactivity. The propulsion of your body through the water in a streamlined process is for a minute period is in action. And it's the glide. And you actually get further and can travel faster by leveraging the glide. And, in swimming, particularly at a more advanced level, we count strokes in a pool. So there's, we ask swimmers about their stroke count. How many strokes did it take you to get to 50 meters? Now, there'll be various numbers that'll come back, but basically less is best. So the less strokes you do, the better. So you've got to hold that glide longer. You've got to hold the water longer. And that's hard to do when you've got to go fast. So often when people go fast, the stroke rate will go up a little bit. But if you can, you've got to hold that number. So I started to use that analogy when I returned into the corporate world after my swimming classes, to my bosses talking about the glide, because I felt that there was a lot of benefit in business to starting to think about holding it. In sales, we're always told activity breeds sales. Keep active, make the numbers, make the calls, talk to a lot of people. How many people you talk to, it's all, as I mentioned earlier, it's about a numbers game. But it's not random numbers. It's got to be productive. It's got to be thought through. There's got to be some thinking behind it. And with the glide, I learned that inactivity can take you somewhere if you take that moment, and become efficient with what you do, which is what we all aim to be, more efficient as swimmers. The glide is critical to that. So I was using it a lot in business meetings. And my boss, I think on my last Christmas card, he wrote, "Kari, I'm still thinking about the glide," because I would just say, it's in the glides. Just let's stop pushing our teams to do all of this activity. Let's just be really thoughtful and, succinct about what we're doing and measure and be more efficient. So there we go. I feel like the glide is a metaphor for life.
It is. It's such a beautiful way to think of it, isn't it? It's a wonderful analogy. Thank you. Gus, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up.
Thank you. Kari, once again, thank you so much for your time, donating your time on Leader Talk and also on my passion, One Bowl of Rice. Give a lot of meaning to Natalie and I, and obviously the audience as well. This is what we learned today. We start with asking you what's the top 3 leadership. One, if you want to be successful as a leader, you need to be authentic. You need to have a clarity in your communication and sending your message, especially the way you tell your story. You need to do what you say. I think accountability is important, just to say a lot of things but unable to do it yourself. It can be counterproductive. You need to keep your passion alive by teaching and sharing your passion. By sharing your passion, by teaching your passion, you actually get that back to you. You need to develop yourself by trying new things. Kari, you are a swimmer, but you do running, you do reading, you do acting class, you do cooking. It's just by doing that, you learn a lot of other skills that you can apply back to your business. Sales is a dirty word for many, but then in the absence of selling and in the absence of accepting that sales is part of your business, you cannot grow faster than what you want. You need to love sales. And if you don't love sales, network with people that love sales, because then they can teach you how to love sales. And at the end, selling is important because it's part of your life. You sell every day. And then you close with glide more. Use that moment. Be effective. Be efficient. It's not about just doing 1,000 strokes because you will run out of your energy. You want to understand how many strokes that can take you further by understanding the glide moment, the moment of not doing anything. Kari, thank you so much for your time today. On behalf of Brainiac Leader Talk, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kari. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiac.com.au. Thanks, everyone.